Good morning Africa on Africa TV mbokk yi ñu leen di nuyu di leen dalalaat fii si beneen interesting edition of the Good Morning Africa program seen favorite programme boo xam ne daf dee ñëw from Mondays to Fridays te every day rek comme niñ ko dee baaxoo di defee rek saa su ne rek dañ dee start suñ studio stories yi ñu andi newspaper review ñu invite leen tamit guest yoo xam ne dañ am solo waxtaane loo xam ne daal dafa am solo xew-xewi réew mi ak lu nekk di xew si réew mi ak si bitim réew tey nag maa ngi fi ànd ak suma naataango Modou Mohamed Niang kooku xam ngeen ne suma xarit la yàgg naa nekk suma xarit Modou Niang naka suba si.
maa ngi laa nuyu Ajaratu Julde Ndiaye Souare madame Souare nuyu naa la yaay Ibrahima maa ngi laa nuyu bu baax di nuyu ñuy seetaan Africa TV su waxtu wi jotee di fi taataan seen xibaar yi wér te wóor waaw.
xibaar yu wér te wóor loolu rek la leen andil si Africa TV ñun daal bés bu nekk rek suñ xëyee rek luñ dee xalaat moo nekk ne naka la ñoo mun a andilee nit ñi xibaar yoo xam ne dañ wér tamit dañ wóor te loolu mu nekk loo xam ne daal am na solo torop torop moo taxit nag suñ xibaar boo xam ne daal génnee nañ ko nit ñi duñ fa dee am ñaari xel wala duñ seen xel du ñaaw si suñ xibaar yooyu noonu because dañ ñu wóolu tey nag dañ leen fas a andil xibaar yu am solo because Minister of Tourism Hamad NK Bah moom daana de advice nit ñi especially ñoo xam ne daal ñoo nekk political party leaders yi mu ne gaay ñu bàyyi seen xel torop si seen kàddu luñ nekk di wax especially in this forthcoming December 4th presidential election xam nañ ne fu mu nekk ni Gambia wax bi bari na coow li bari nañ especially si social media platforms yi ñi lu nekk lañ nekk di wax moo taxit nag mu génn si State House bi bu mu doon amee daje foofu noonu State House mu wax mu ne ñi dañ war a bàyyi seen xel si lu ñoo wax especially ñoo xam ne daal ñoo nekk di political party leaders dinañ leen andi story boobu noonu gaypa ñoom tamit lañ nañ seen new strategy export strategy boo xam ne daal dina dimbale Gambia ñu mun a jël seen produce bi moo nekk seen agricultural produce maanaam i gerte yi suñ jën yi ak yeneen yoo xam ne dafa am solo trop si réew mi ñu muñ koo yóbbu si yeneen réew si Africa ak tamit si bitim réew pour ñun tamit ñu jaay foofu noonu loolu mu nekk a very important branding for the Gambia loolu dañ launch that second strategy launch nañ another strategy waaye this is the second one foog nañ ne na strategy boobu noonu dina am solo torop ndaxte dafa dimbale nit ñi te dafa tamit employ nit yu bëri yoo xam ne daal Gambians lañ loolu tamit dinañ leen fi andil fisheries tamit am nañ ne tamit fu mu nekk ni fisheries daal moo nekk di xew si réew mi dafa am solo mu nekk béréb boo xam ne daal am na solo torop si réew mi waaye British High Commissioner bi nag mu ngi ñaax nit ñi ñu toppatoo loo mboolem loo xam ne moo nekk fishing industry bi in the Gambia lii ak leneen dina ñëw si Good Morning Africa programme bi fii ak man Julde Ndiaye Souare ak Modou Mohamed Niang bu leen dem fenn because story bi dina interesting xam nga ne suma xarit la suma waay la suma bokk ak moom plateau boobu noonu daf dee neex te daf dee am solo with that we just start with our first story which has to do with matters of politics because the tourism minister Hamad NK Bah calls on the political party leaders to be careful on what they're doing, especially when it comes to during the December 4th presidential elections. Campaign it will soon start, and then party supporters and people will, tend to be tempted to say words or do things that is not in the best interest of the country. So as such, he is advising especially party leaders to be very, very cautious with what they do, especially in the forthcoming December presidential election. GAIPA also launched a new strategy on export, and that strategy is meant to help Gambia, export products to the international community. These are more stories coming your way on the Good Morning Africa program. So we just kickstart with matters of the Gambia's tourism minister because ahead of the forthcoming December 4th presidential elections, civil society organizations have been relentlessly preaching for a peaceful democratic elections in the Gambia. The latest to join the advocacy is Gambia's tourism minister Ahmad NK Bah, who calls for the maintenance of a calm atmosphere during political campaigns. Binta Jallo has the latest.
Political campaigns undeniably plays a crucial role in the democratic and electoral process of any nation. The arena is utilized to converge and create dialogue between political figures and the electorate to discuss developmental issues for the advancement of the nation. However, the political sphere in the Gambia over the years has taken a swift and misdirected approach between politicians and their supporters. The political arena in recent days has been marred with unpleasant comments, mostly from party supporters. This, according to many, signals an unhealthy and worrisome moment as Gambians are expected to race to the polls in barely 4 months' time. Speaking during a meeting with the YBK group at the State House ground, Ahmad Ba re-echoes the need for political parties and other bodies to stabilize the political sphere during election campaigns.
Seeking for presidency does not mean you have to curse people or insult them or even lie to the masses. Let us be careful because election will always come and go. Let us not say something bad against one another, and when we see tomorrow, we will not be able to talk to each other. President Barrow is not stopping anybody to do their campaigns. You are free to do your campaign. We are asking all alcalos and community heads to accord them with maximum respect. Don't insult them or curse them for no reason. Don't obstruct them because they have a right to campaign freely in the country without any hindrance. That is their right, and that's what Adama Barrow fought for.
The year 2016 ushered in democracy for Gambians. This, according to Ba, should not be jeopardized. For iAfrica News, Binti Jallo.
The failure of the 2013 to 2017 National Export Strategy (NES) triggered the establishment of the second National Export Strategy. The new export strategy is supported by the Commonwealth Secretariat in partnership with public and private sector. Speaking at the event, Hassan Gay, the Permanent Secretary of GAIPA, highlighted the genesis of the National Export Strategy and how the Gambia can benefit from it.
The objectives of the NES is to leverage the market access provided by the various multilateral and bilateral preferential market access treatments, to promote the development of packaging and labeling to meet international market requirements, to create employment and alleviate poverty, and to promote women in exports, develop human capacity in trade, especially exports.
The representative of the Secretariat, Mrs. Yinka Bandele, dilated on the importance of putting forward resources towards the actualization of the NES project.
The challenge of transforming Gambia from a small LDC with inherent characteristics of vulnerability to external shocks, a narrow resource base or commodity dependency, poor physical infrastructure with limited economies of scale, into a country which is nimble, highly responsive to international trade dynamics, and globally competitive is a challenge which the key stakeholders from the public and private sectors must continue to rise to. Such a transformation would require vision, a national commitment to excel, a combination of high investment and aid flows, and improved productivity of its citizens, with the resilience to implement key strategies such as the NES.
The Minister of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment, CDK Keita, said despite the small scale of production, the export strategy will help Gambia harness opportunities and take advantage in pushing forward the Gambian export brand. The Vice President of the Gambia, Dr. Aissatou Touré, highlighted the significance of the National Export Strategy in economic growth.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the National Export Strategy 2021-2025 is designed as a practical roadmap for the Gambia to achieve increased levels of economic development by focusing its limited but valuable resources on developing export capacity in 6 priority sectors for which the Gambia has the greatest potential for export development. The next specific goals and expected targets are as follows: to build a stronger more responsible, robust, and resilient economy, to diversify export markets, to move the economy up this value chain through higher value generating export activities.
The NES identifies 6 priority areas and covers several cross-cutting issues that focus on enhancing the productive sector for increased exports. It also highlighted the approach that the government and private sector will use to determine the framework with which export-led growth will flourish and encourage investment in those sectors with export potential. These sectors include tourism, horticulture, agribusiness, fisheries, among others. The Gambia is a small economy that has been operating with a trade deficit for many years with heavy dependence on imports. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Hawan Jai. 90% of global inland captured fisheries production is used for human consumption in developing countries like the Gambia. Majority of the Gambian population depends on fish for their daily protein consumption. Fishing centers like Tanje, Bakau, and Gunjur contribute immensely in the industry, adding exponentially to the Gambia's economy as about 30,000 Gambians are employed in this sector. The British High Commissioner to the Gambia, David Berggrove, highlighted some importance of the fishery sector to the economic growth of countries.
When fishing grounds are illegally exploited, it has a considerable impact. Vast numbers of people around the world rely on upon the sea. Their survival depends upon the ocean's capacity for renewal, which can only be maintained if we take an intelligent approach now to looking after these underlying natural systems and enable the oceans to function and regenerate.
The Commissioner also dilated on how most sectors of the nation could be affected if the fishing industry is not properly managed.
It's not just an environmental issue, it is also a serious economic issue, both for the artisanal fishermen, but actually for things like exports, which actually the developing country, quite often the exports will actually meet more, marine exports can actually earn more money than rice or coffee. And if fish stocks fail, then the social and economic consequences will be dire. Thousands of coastal communities in Africa, including the Gambia, livelihoods and futures depend on fish. And too often we hear from communities here in the Gambia and around the region of fish stocks declining and not being renewed because of overfishing and illegal exploitation of those fish stocks.
The protection and policing of waters and fishing grounds is under the Gambian Navy, and with knowledge of national and international laws, exploitation of the fisheries industry will be reduced drastically. The Gambia's natural resource is its waters, so the protection of it will help in boosting the income generation from the fisheries sector. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Hawan Jai.
After his overthrow in Chad by the late President Idriss Déby, Habré fled to Senegal and for more than 20 years lived freely in an upmarket Dakar suburb with his family and children. Habré, 73, was accused of war crimes and torture during his 8 years in power in Chad, where rights groups said some 40,000 people were killed under his rule. Dubbed Africa's Pinochet, Habré was finally arrested in 2013 and tried by a special tribunal set up by the African Union under a deal with Senegal. During Habré's rule, his government was responsible for widespread political killings, systematic torture, thousands of arbitrary arrests, and the targeting of particular ethnic groups. A legal battle by victims of his actions that lasted for several years led to his arrest on June 30, 2013 at his home in Dakar and charged on July 2, 2013. He was tried and finally sentenced by the African Special Court in Dakar, Senegal, after being found guilty of rape, sexual assaults, voluntary homicides, massive human trafficking, abduction, and torture. The former president only served 5 years of his life sentence before he died of COVID-19 on a Tuesday morning, August 24, 2021, as reports from Senegal indicates. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
Climate change has impacts on the Gambia's ecosystem, and the cutting down of trees without replacing them has affected the climate, altering the distribution of rain yearly. This is a leading factor to the degradation in the agricultural sector. The dire situation prompts this organization into the planting of trees beside the back of the dam side. Ibu Fanjai, the acting national director for the children village in the Gambia, highlights the significance of the exercise.
This exercise is one of the components of the back of the dam side project. That is the environmental protection component. We are here today to initiate the green zone. The green zone is a component of the project that is meant to make it very green, but more importantly, to protect the environment and reduce the waste, improve the environment, and then also contribute eventually to climate change.
The manager of the Bakote SOS Children Village, Abdul Aziz Mbosh, dilates on the measures they will undertake in maintaining the trees.
One of the most important things is that you are seeing the fence. That is one of the protections that is going to sustain this planting. And another thing is this is in partnership with KMC, and you see that the KMC personnel also will be coming around from time to time to ensure that there is safety within the zone. You know, this is called the green zone, or sometimes we call it it's used to as a windbreaker, whereby anything that is coming out from the dump site will be protected from this side. It will be fully protected for sure. This time everything will be sustained. That's why we all converge here and make sure that we do the planting. We are definitely making sure that we work towards sustainability. That is a very, very important aspect, and sure that we will also achieve it.
Yankuba Dabo, the acting project coordinator, also dilates on the importance of the green zone to the community and the environment.
So this is why we also, because here when you look at the dump site, hardly you see people come and pay a visit to the dump site. You see anybody there? Yeah, because it's a dump site. But now we want it to be presented the best way. We want to bring the image so that everybody falls in love with the dump site. That is why the green zone is conceptualized. And the green zone, the tree planting is going on today. In the long run, well, nobody comes to the dump site, but you will see lovebirds taking selfies on the dump site because of the green and the beauty that the green zone has portrayed to the general population. So far so good. This is what is happening today. And of course, understanding the importance of trees in the livelihood and the life of human beings, I think it is definitely necessary to have this and protect them for them to grow for our own good.
The SOS is a worldwide organization set up to promote and improve the lives of children across the world. To maintain the environment children are residing in, people have to be wary of the effects of climate change. Climate change is affecting the world, and the Gambia is not an exception. In times of disasters, children are highly affected. So planting trees to minimize the effects of climate change in the Gambia is indeed crucial. Reporting for iAfrican News, I am Hawan Jai.
The COVID-19 global health crisis has negatively impacted the lives of people, including the differently abled people. Most of these people, especially visually impaired, have been economically affected as most of them are unemployed. People with these disabilities, faced with increased risk of poor outcomes from the virus, reduced access to routine health care and rehabilitation, and the adverse social impact of efforts to mitigate the pandemic. Lamin Koli, the executive director of the Gambia Organization of the Visually Impaired, has highlighted the economical effect COVID-19 has on visually impaired.
Our members are facing a huge challenge during this period. When you look at the economical aspect, during the lockdown, you will find out that public places were locked, and most visually impaired people who depend on begging were not able to go out as a result of the lockdown imposed by the COVID-19. So this has imposed a big challenge on their lives and their families.
According to Lamin Koli, the support received from the government is not satisfactory, but acknowledges certain NGOs that provided them great help.
Yes, there are support from NGOs. There are some NGOs that, would not allow their names to be published anyway, but they have done a lot for visually impaired people across the country. But when it comes to the government sector, I think what was the support that was granted to visually impaired people was not satisfactory anyway. But looking at the problem is that our visually impaired people were not involved in the process of drafting the response strategy for the COVID-19 that was drafted by the National Disaster Management Agencies, meaning disabled people were not involved in the process of developing that strategy. That's why the COVID-19 response was not inclusive.
Lamin calls on the authorities to include the different disabled people in all the decisions that they make.
Authorities should always remember that Gambia is a diverse country with diverse people, that there are some people who are still left behind. So they should start thinking of what to do to bring those people on board. So our issues should be valued. We should always be remembered by the authorities and decision makers. So with that, some of these challenges will be addressed gradually.
Worldwide, disasters and emergencies often disproportionately impact everyone, but the disabled are often hit hard, and this pandemic is of no exception. Reporting for iAfrica News, Aisha Jallo.